Hello everyone, welcome to my kitchen. My name is Michael and today we're going to be making some chocolate cherry jam. If you've never had that before, this is absolutely delicious and it is really easy to make and it is so versatile what you could use it for. You can actually put it on some biscuits, or if you want to, you can put it on ice cream as a topping for that, or if you want to put it on some cake, whatever you'd like to use it for is completely up to you what you want to use it for. And as a bonus for this video, I'm going to show you how to water bath can your jars so you'll have those, make those shelf stable. So we're going to go ahead and start with the jars first. And so I've got my canner on the stove, and you want to make sure you have a rack in your canner. I'm going to put a link in the description box below. I've got several videos on my channel where I go through all the equipment that you'll need for canning. So if you want to go check those out, definitely go check those out if you've never canned before. But I've got my jars here, and I've got 8 of these half-pint jars. This recipe should make 6, but depending on how many cherries you've got, I've got a set recipe here for this. But definitely it could go up or down based on the cooking time and what we're going to use it for. So I've got 8 jars here. I'm going to go ahead and put those in my canner, and I want to make sure that I fill my jars up first with water, drop them down in the canner, and then completely fill the rest of the canner up. You want to have 1 to 2 inches of water above the top of your jars, so when they get ready to start processing. So I'm going to go ahead and put my jars in my canner. I'm going to go ahead and turn that on, and we want that water to come up to about 180 degrees Fahrenheit, because once the jam gets cooked, we want hot jam in hot jars. You don't want to put hot jam in a cold jar because it could take the risk of that cracking or breaking, and we definitely don't want that to happen. So give your jars one last inspection, make sure they are really clean. We're going to put these in our canner, and I'll be back in just a minute. All right, I've got my jars and my canner now, and we're ready to move on now. So I've got my rings and my lids here with these. You want to make sure that you've got really nice rings. You can reuse your rings over and over and over again, and check those and make sure you've got some good rings. If you've got new ones, definitely use those. So I've got my lids here, and I've got just a little bit of water. When I first learned how to can, we used to take the lids and we would boil them in water. But you don't have to do that anymore. The USDA has changed that. So I'm going to put these on the stove and put these on really low, and I just want those to kind of heat up just above room temperature. I really don't want these to get any hotter than that. And I'll be back in just a minute. So I've got my lids on the stove now, and I've got those turned down really low. I've got my jars in my canner. So let's start working on our cherries. I've got 6 cups of my sweet cherries here. These are fresh cherries. You can definitely use frozen ones if you want to. Just measure them out in your bowl or whatever you're measuring them. You want 6 cups before you go in and pit them or cut them up. And so what I did is I went in and used my cherry pitter here, and you just put the cherry here in the middle, and it pops that cherry seed or stone right out of the middle there. So definitely if you've got one of these, use that. If you don't have one of those, you can use a chopstick, or you can use one of the metal straws and push it through, and they'll come out the other side of those. So once we get all of the cherries pitted, we're going to take those now and we're going to roughly chop those up. So I've got one here, and what I did with these is I went in and cut it in half, and then I took that and cut that in half, and then I cut it in half again. So I basically cut it up into quarters, and I put them into my container here. So I've got 6 cups of roughly chopped sweet cherries. All right, so now that you've got all of your cherries pitted and chopped, and we've got those set here to the side, we're going to go ahead with our other ingredients. Normally when I make my jellies or my jams, if you've seen any of my other videos on my channel, I don't use the commercial pectin normally in those. So if you want to go check out those videos on that where I do not use that. But today we're going to be using our pectin that we've got here commercially. So this is going to be different in today's recipe, and this is going to go really quickly with that. So if you've seen my other videos, when you make jams and things, it might take 20, 25, 30 minutes before your fruit will gel up. But with the commercial pectin, it's going to happen a lot faster. So that's why I've got all of my canning supplies here ready to go. I've got everything clean. My jars are heating up. I've got my berries here. I've already got those chopped and ready to go. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to turn my pot on here. And you want a stainless steel pot or a Dutch oven. And I'm going to go ahead and drop in my cherries into this pan I've got here now. All right, now that we've got our cherries in, I'm going to take my pectin that I've already got measured out here, and I've got 6 tablespoons of my pectin I've got measured out. And we're going to go ahead and put that into our container here. And then I've got a 1/4 cup of bottled lemon juice. When you're preserving or canning anything like that, you definitely want to use bottled juice like this when it calls for lemon juice, because the acidity in this is stable when you buy it commercial like this. If you want to use the lemons and fresh squeeze those. The acidity level in those could change from fruit to fruit as you're chopping those up. So you definitely want to use a bottled lemon juice when you're using your lemon juice for anything you're going to be canning or processing. So I've got a 1/4 cup here. All right, so we've got everything in there now, and I want to bring this up to a boil. So I've got my heat source here turned up on high, and we're going to bring this up to a rolling boil. And what I mean by that is when you stir it and the boiling doesn't stop, that's where it's at, is a rolling boil. So that's what we want to do. We want to bring this up to a rolling boil now. All right, while I'm waiting that to come up to a boil, I've got my sugar here now, and I've got 6 cups of sugar, and I've got that here, and I've got 2/3 of a cup of unsweetened cocoa. So I'm going to go ahead and put that into this little sifter that I've got here, and I'm going to sift that into my sugar because we don't want any lumps of that. And sometimes you can get some of the cocoa and it'll have a lot of lumps in it, so it's good to sift that through. Like you can see there, I'll be able to use the spoon and try to get some of that out, but I'm going to go ahead and sift all of this into my sugar. All right, I've got just a little bit of that left. I'm going to use the back of this spoon here and just make sure that we get all of those lumps out of that. And you want to make sure you keep stirring this here because this, like I said, this is going to come together really quickly. As soon as this starts boiling, your juice will start releasing out of your cherries, and it's going to happen really quickly. All right, now I'm going to use this whisk, and I'm going to whisk together this chocolate into my sugar and get that mixed together really well. All right, I've got my cocoa and my sugar mixed together now, and I'll set that to the side, and I'm going to continue to work on my cherries. Like I said earlier, do not go off and leave this because you do not want this sticking to the bottom of your pan. All right, this has come up to a rolling boil now, and it's still boiling even though I am stirring it. And I'm going to go ahead now, and we're going to add our sugar and our cocoa. And give that a good mix through. And you want to bring this back up to another rolling boil again. All right, now my jam has come up to a rolling boil, and when I stir it, it has not stopped boiling. So we want to set a timer for 1 minute and let this cook for 1 minute. All right, my timer went off now for 1 minute. I want to show you what this looks like. I did take the heat out from under it so it will stop cooking. But you definitely, when this starts, you do not want to stop stirring it. It happens within about 5 minutes. It took about 3 minutes or 4 minutes for it to come back up to a boil once I put the sugar and the chocolate in it. And then at that point, you set your 1 minute timer and let that boil once it comes back up for hard rolling boil for 1 minute. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get my jars out of the water bath canner now, and we're going to come over here and we're going to start our canning process. All right, I've got one of my jars here now, and I'm going to go ahead and put my funnel on the top of that. We're looking for a 1/4 inch headspace, and this tool is really nice because it has markings on it here for 1/4, 3/4, half, up to 1 inch. And if you've got one of these tools, this does the same thing. Each one of these markings is 1/4. So you're looking to fill your jars up so that you've got 1/4 of an inch left at the top between where the top of the jar is and where your actual jam is. So now I've got a ladle here that I've got, and I'm going to ladle in enough jam to give myself a 1/4 inch headspace. So now what you want to do is you want to use the back of the tool that I have here, or if you've got a chopstick, you can use that. But you want to make sure that you get any air pockets that could be trapped at the bottom out of your jar. What will happen is, if you've got your 1/4 inch now and you've got an air pocket at the bottom, when you process your jars, that bubble could come up and change the distance, and then you definitely don't want to have that happen because you definitely need to have your 1/4 inch at the top. It could drop it down to a half, 3/4, even an inch if you don't get that out of there. So you definitely want to test that to make sure that you get that any air pockets out of there. That's a very important part of this. And then we're going to check it to make sure that we've got a 1/4 inch headspace. And I do, I've got that from there. Now that I've used my debubbler and I know I don't have any air pockets in there, I'm going to take a clean paper towel here, and I've got some vinegar. And what you want to do now, be really careful with this because this is still very hot, is you want to clean the top of your jar off. You don't want to leave any of that sticky residue on the top, because what happens now is we're going to put our lid on it, and we want that lid to make sure that we're going to get a good seal. So this is another opportunity to check as you're cleaning it to see if anything has chipped or broken while it was in the canner, and I don't feel anything. You've got that clean now. So now I'm going to take one of my little magnetizers here, tool that I've got, take one of my lids, and I'm going to put that right on the top of my jar. I'm going to take one of my rings, And I'll put that on here. Once I've got that ring on there, I'm going to be really careful because like I said, this is really hot. You want this fingertip tight, so you're going to grab it and you're going to twist it just like that. You're not going to twist it down on the top of it. You just want it to catch. Then we'll take our lifter that we've got here. You definitely want to use something that's going to make this very secure. This is a very nice one. It's got a little lip in here that will catch that. Do not use tongs because you want to be safe with that. You're dealing with hot jam, hot jars, hot water in the back. You definitely don't want to get burnt. So this is really nice. You can hold it, and you want to hold it just like this. You don't want to be tipping it over on its side. All right, I am back and I got my jars filled up. I was able to get 7 of these half-pint jars and almost a full 8th one here. I could have probably scraped a lot of that out of there, but I thought I would make some pancakes in the morning, and I'm going to put some of this over the top of that. There's so much you can do with this other than just having it as a jam. Like I said earlier, you can put it over ice cream, you can put it over cake, you can put it over your pancakes. Versatile what you want to do with it. So I've got my water bath canner turned back on high now, and I've got the lid on it, and I'm waiting for that to come to a rolling boil. I want my water to come to a rolling boil on that, and then I'm going to set my timer. Now the timer is based on the altitude where you live. Where I'm at now, I'm below 1,000 feet. So I will process my jars for 10 minutes. I'll put the link in the description box below what the USDA recommends based on the altitude changes, how much time you'll need to add to your processing time. Like I say, if you're at 1,000 feet or below, the processing time will be for 10 minutes, and that will be once that hits that rolling boil. So once it starts rolling, boiling, go ahead and set your timer for 10 minutes. Once that 10-minute timer goes off, you'll take the lid off of your pot, you'll turn off your heat source, and you'll let your jars sit in the water for 5 more minutes, and then you'll be able to take those out. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this up now, and I'll come back and I'll show you what those look like when they come out. I am back, and I've got my jars now out of my water bath canner, and we're going to let these sit on the counter here where they are out of harm's way of anybody. So definitely you want to put these somewhere that they can't be touched because they are piping hot, and we want to let these sit for 24 hours. Once they cool down, the rings on the top will loosen up, and you'll be able to take the rings off the top of them, and that's the way you want to store them. You don't want to leave the rings on them and store them that way because you could get a false seal for any unknown reason. I've never had one do that, but you potentially could. Oh, if you've never canned before, that kind of is indication there that they are sealing down on the ball lids there. They've got a little dimple on them, and once they come out of that water bath canner and hit that cooler air, that little dimple on the top will pop down. So after the 24 hours is up, you can go in and you'll be able to take your rings off. They'll be loose on there where they've cooled down on that part, and you'll take them off, and you'll be able to tell when you pick up the top of it. If the lid stays attached to it, then you know you've got a good seal. If it doesn't attach, it's not a bad thing. You can always just put a ring back on that one, put that one in the refrigerator, and you can eat that one right then. It's still good. But definitely check those. You want to make sure that your lids have got a good seal on the jar. And when you take those rings off, that's how you want to store them. You want to store them on your can shelf with the rings off of them. And the reason that is, I've never had this happen, but I've known other people that have, is you'll go in and you pick up your product that you're going to eat, and the lid will be off the top of it. And you definitely don't want to eat that one anymore because then that one has been exposed to air. It could have mold. It could have bacteria in it. You definitely don't want that. You'll throw that one away. But if you leave the rings on them and that happens, then the lid could have enough force on it with that ring on there that it could stick back down again to the jar, and you've not got a seal at that point. You've exposed your food to mold and bacteria, and that is not a good thing. So when you put your jars on your can shelf, put them on there without the rings on them and store them that way. So this is my jar here that I've got here. I wanted to give this a little taste test and show you what this looks like. So you can see that this has set up very nicely. We've got a nice gel on our cherry chocolate jam. And with that commercial pectin in there, that happened really quickly. I'm going to put some in this little bowl I've got over here, and we'll give this a taste test. That looks really good. And it smells just like chocolate. The whole house smells like chocolate from where we've been making that tonight. So this looks really good. I'm going to give this a try, and we'll see what this tastes like. That is absolutely delicious. I get that tartness of that cherry, even with that sugar in there. And that chocolate is coming through there. This is a really good recipe. I know you're going to want to try it. If you try this recipe, definitely leave me a comment in the comment section. I'd love to hear from you and how yours turned out, what you think of it. And if you've made this before, definitely leave me a comment. I'd love to hear what you think about it. And if you did anything different to it, I'd love to hear from you. And if you like this content, maybe you might consider giving me a thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. And while you're at it, check out one of the other 2 videos over here on the side. You might find something else you like. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Try this chocolate cherry jam. I know you're going to love it. I'll see you in my next video. Bye-bye now.